could make a couple of opening comments about, why Robert, and you were intimately involved with the search. I think that would be helpful for our friends that are on the call with us today.
Well, let me, first of all, thanks for joining, and good to see you this morning. I'm on my way to Durham this Sunday in California, so it's 7:20 here. Um, so on the last earnings call, we talked about three parallel priorities: improving the operation of the company, liability management, and access to capital. Part of improving the operations of the company is the transition to a new leader. So we're thrilled to announce that we have found that person, and we're thrilled that it's a person that has relevant silicon carbide technology experience. In fact, couldn't be more credible on that front because he was leading the Infineon acquisition of Wolfspeed's silicon carbide business. So not only does he know silicon carbide technology, he knows Wolfspeed's team. Secondly, he's an operator. He runs fabs, so he knows how to take technology and turn it into products efficiently. And that's what Wolfspeed does. We have made significant investments in two fabs, one in New York and one in Siler City, and Robert's an operator. And then lastly, Robert is doing business, has been doing business, and is doing business in our end markets. It's highly relevant to his current business, and of course, when he ran Infineon Power. So he's got the ability, and he comes into this with a lot of ideas on how to increase our revenue and diversify our revenue. So he's got technology, operations, and customer, which were the primary attributes that we were looking for. And so we're thrilled to be able to announce him today. That would be my overview. Happy to take any questions.
And yeah, to keep this fairly orderly, why don't we'll go one question at a time. We'll go around. We'll try and get through a couple of rounds of questions. So, Lauren, do you want to start us off? You got a question for Tom?
Yes, thanks. Hi, Tom. I was hoping you could, sorry for the background noise. I was hoping you could give us an update on where things stand with the CHIPS Act dollars.
I would say the same thing as earnings call with a little more data. Constructively engaged with the CHIPS office. Our project leader is still there. I think most people are aware that there's been reductions in the CHIPS office. I would say that it's likely that the parameters of CHIPS funding, or what we call DFA, direct funding agreement with the CHIPS office, are likely to evolve some because the company has evolved and because CHIPS office is different and there's a new administration who we are constructively engaged with. So we would stick with summer. I would probably say late summer.
Zach, go ahead. You had your hand up, and then Sean will come to you next.
Yeah, sort of two quick questions, but will Robert be based in Durham, or will he be based somewhere else?
He'll be based in Durham day one, May 1st.
And can you tell me a little bit more about sort of why you think his operations experience will be beneficial for Wolfspeed? Obviously, there have been some concerns about capacity of the New York plant, for example, but what do you think that he brings for some of those issues that may have cropped up on the operation side?
Well, what we did in New York was beyond pioneering. We brought up 200 millimeter wafer, silicon carbide wafer-based fab, never been done. A brand new software to run the facility and the way it's the ERP. We have all new people. We have new parts that we're running. We have new automation. And so when you do all of that simultaneously, the probability of getting everything right is multiplied and therefore quite difficult. Robert has, as I interviewed him, I talked about each of those things and how would you approach this? And I was listening for drawing from experience. and that's what I heard. So the ability to go deep on key operating parameters. So this is a very hands-on job, and he exhibited that hands-on capability.
Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So what is Robert's relationship with the current presidential administration? Is that an important factor in why you guys look to have him lead the company? And is that relationship critical towards Wolfspeed's success here in North Carolina?
The answer to your question is yes. The relationship between Wolfspeed Silicon Carbide and the White House is critical. Just let me say that they're well aware that it's an American-based company founded from North Carolina State, American IP, thousands of jobs, billions invested in critical to national security, including critical minerals, which was announced last week. So Robert comes into this well aware of that. His experience at Micron, I think, is very relevant here. He went to high school in Denver. His father worked at IBM. So he's well aware of the geopolitics and the American politics. Also, I would say that I will stay on as exec chair for a few months, and I have quite a bit of experience in this area. So I'll be supplementing Robert for a few months as we pass the baton, and actively. In fact, I'll be in Washington, D.C. on behalf of Wolfspeed and behalf of our team Tuesday and Wednesday next week.
Brian, why don't we come to you, and then Lauren will come back around.
Yeah, I'm curious the balance between Wolfspeed's focus on materials versus devices. And I know a device factory was closed recently, and Siler City is coming up with materials. So I'm just wondering, going forward, is it thinking about what its balance will be, and is there any change in terms of maybe focusing more on materials or something else in terms of balances?
To answer your questions, yes, focused on both. But let me give you some color. So the silicon carbide material is very difficult to make. Essentially, it doesn't want to be a single crystal. It can grow in many different forms. And so it takes a great deal of science to make a large wafer that is a single crystal. We can uniquely do that. We're the only ones in volume production in the world. And then you capitalize on that single crystal structure in the device, in the actual transistor that goes into an end system. Having vertical integration allows us to leverage the high quality wafers and have that knowledge when we make a device. So we want to continue to exploit that. And it's important to note that on our earnings call, we talked about 3 priorities, and I mentioned them: improving the operations, liability management, and access to capital. That's exactly what we're focused on. Beyond that, as we improve those 3 things, and I would add to that, managing geopolitics and the trade case, sure, we'll always look at options. Greg did a great job of evolving the company to being focused on silicon carbide, both materials and devices. And we will evaluate options over time. But clearly, we have an advantage of vertical integration. And then I do want to comment on the fab. Think of that. That was a long planned transition. I think of it more of as a transition. We're consolidating our fab operations into a brand new state-of-the-art 200 millimeter fab that has 3 times more capacity than we're currently running. So that was intentional, and it was always intended that we would transition the North Carolina fab people to making the materials, and then all of our device would be done in Mohawk Valley. So I'd rather think of that as a planned transition, and will make our company substantially stronger, because the economics of running a state-of-the-art fab are far better than running a lower volume manual fab in North Carolina.
Lauren, we'll come back to you.
Yes, I'm curious if Robert got to see the mega factory in Siler City, and I'm also curious where things stand with that mega factory.
The answer is he's only seen Siler City from things that I've shown him. I, of course, have been there several times, as recent as I think a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's very aware, though, because remember, Robert was at Infineon, and Infineon was looking at buying what is now Wolfspeed, and did deep diligence. He knows the primary scientists in both the materials business and the device business because he's been in the industry a long time because of the diligence he did. And he therefore actually has been in touch with those people ever since he looked at acquiring our business. So he, I think, hits the ground running. And his plan is in the first couple of weeks is to get to as many of our facilities locations as he can, perhaps all of them. In terms of Siler City status, we are making great crystals, great meaning the same specs as what we make in Durham. And we're putting the capability into turn those crystals, so-called boules, into wafers with the same quality that we have in Durham. We have temporary certificate of occupancy, and we're meeting all of the criteria for the CHIPS Act. So it's going great.
Thanks, Lauren. Zach.
Obviously, Robert has a lot of experience in Germany. I'm curious if that is any sort of indication on, the plans for the on-hold factory in Germany. Are those something you're still exploring? Is that something that's still on the table? Is this something that hiring Robert might speed up?
I would say that that's secondary or third level. The primary is to exploit the new operations that we've created in New York and Siler City, and to exploit our technology in the end markets. Germany, of course, is a big auto manufacturing, and we have several important customers that he does business with or done business with. So his German and European background is very valuable. And I want to emphasize that he has spent a lot of time in the U.S. at Micron, gone to high school here as a dual citizen. So I think secondary or third, we still have a lot of capacity in both facilities that we could be a much bigger company exploiting those facilities. But does it help? Yes.
Thanks, Zach. Sean, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So there's obviously so many federal budget cuts that are going on right now that we've reported on. CHIPS Act, obviously a part of that. I mean, how concerning would that be for Wolfspeed and the industry as a whole if the CHIPS Act was axed?
So I'll answer your question and then I'll just expand on it a little bit. We're running our company. There's as I said, improve the operation, liability management, and access to capital, which is CHIPS Act and tax credits. Note that the CHIPS Act had also tax incentives, and the tax incentives are actually as large as the CHIPS Act for Wolfspeed. So both are important. And we are managing our company to not be over reliant on any of the above, to be able to run our operation successfully without necessarily getting those grants, or maybe not at the size they are. We would be able to accelerate our growth and employ more people, of course, with both the tax credits and the CHIPS Act. I would expect, now I'll expand on it, it's likely that the new administration will evolve the CHIPS Act. It may not even be called that. Now, by the way, I am not on the inside, so don't write that the CHIPS Act is going to be renamed. But the important thing is that it will evolve, and that we're constructively engaged, so we're not projecting at some distant level of communication. And there's just a great deal of focus on both how do you create jobs in America that are well-paying in a growth mode, and that's exactly what we are. So there's incentive to do that through CHIPS Act and through tax credits, and then there's also incentive through tariffs that protect the market. And a comprehensive policy is good for Wolfspeed.
Hey, Tom, if I could just jump on there. Sean, it's been really interesting. Tom's been to Washington. He'll be going next week, but it'll be his fourth trip in about 7 or 8 weeks. We've had great support from Senator Tillis, from Senator Budd, and from Congressman Hudson. And we've been granted access. We've been to the White House to meet with representatives from the National Security Council. As Tom talked about, we've also been meeting with U.S. Trade. So while there are adjustments on budgets happening, I think, Wolfspeed is certainly viewed as a critical component of national security. It's a silicon carbide is on the Department of Energy's critical compound list. So we really think that there is definitely open ears in Washington on ways to help fund us. As Tom kind of points out, there's probably a couple of different ways that might potentially happen. So thanks, Sean.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Brian, let's come back to you.
I don't have anything right now. Somebody else.
Okay, Lauren.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about tariffs and what that might mean for Wolfspeed?
Yes. So tariffs it can be applied at different levels. They can be applied at the substrate, at the device, for equipment, other parts of the supply chain. So let me just broadly say that Wolfspeed is positioned incredibly well on potential tariffs because we are an American company. We produce in America, and like 2% of our supply chain is in terms of spend is in China. So any exposure to China is incredibly limited for our company. And we are what tariffs and what a American first policy, what the objective of an America first policy is, which is to have expansion in America and create more well-paying jobs. And that's exactly what Wolfspeed is. So in all likelihood, the tariffs that have been put in place and those that might come are likely to be supportive of Wolfspeed with minor adjustments in our supply chain.
Thanks,
What
Lauren.
about automobiles,
go ahead.
though, with tariffs? Obviously, the automobile industry is really watching this. They're a big customer of Wolfspeed. I guess, what does that mean in terms of tariffs?
If you think about the design wins that we've announced over the last 5 years, there's a great diversity of auto EV manufacturers that we've been designed into and now have wins. Wins is purchase orders. So the answer to your question is diversification is very important, not only because of tariffs, because you don't always know which model is going to be a hot model and sell well. And choosing specific ones would be, bear with me, a fool's errand. Our ability to pick which model is going to succeed is limited. So it's making sure that our world-class best technology components are in the right models. And that pays off because we're diversified and not overly exposed to any one country or any one auto OEM. You are correct. The EV market, though, is the critical driver for growth of our business.
Thanks, Lauren. Hey, Brian, I saw you had your hand up. Brian, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on Lauren's question a bit. Could you all just briefly explain roughly how big EVs are and what other industries make up the top customers?
So our power business is growing from the Q2 that we announced 2.5 months ago in our guidance for Q3, of which we'll have an earnings call in late April. We guided to growth. So the business is growing, and you can split the business into two: EVs and industrial and energy. EVs is faster growing in higher volume, therefore a larger driver of the revenue growth. think of it as being roughly 2/3 of the business. But since it's growing, it will be a higher percentage of our business going forward. The industrial and energy business, think of that as data centers, large renewable energy projects. Help me out, Tyler. Solid state motors, solid state transformers,
marine and aviation as well.
Yeah, so
lots of different applications in terms of the I&E space, and as Tom mentions, big one being AI data centers.
think of EV tolls, something that's electric that needs efficiency. That's what we do.
So why don't we've got probably time for one more question. Does somebody have a final question for Tom? Go ahead, Zach.
Just curious, are you considering selling any part of the company off at this point in time?
At this point in time, no. And nor are we long term. Will we? It's our job as a leadership team and as a board to always be aware of options and what's best for all stakeholders, including our shareholders. But no, there is no near-term plan to sell anything, any part of the business.
Terrific. Well, Zach, good question. Thank you all. Look forward to Robert will be here in a few weeks, and we hope we get a chance that we can connect with you again when Robert arrives. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. We appreciate your time. We're thrilled with the announcement today. It's another piece of the puzzle as we improve the operations of the company. Very much appreciate your time.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks.